Most women think men lose interest because they asked for too much. The truth is harder to hear. Men lose respect when there are no boundaries, and the moment respect disappears, attraction quietly follows. Boundaries are not about controlling behavior, they are about revealing it. Most women misunderstand this. They believe boundaries are something you explain, something you negotiate, something you defend. They are not. A boundary is not a conversation. It is a position, and positions are felt before they are understood. This is why men do not respond to boundaries that are spoken, but not embodied. A woman can say, I won't tolerate inconsistency, but if she stays, adjusts, waits, hopes, the boundary never existed. Men do not learn through words. They learn through access. What you allow becomes the rule. What you tolerate becomes the expectation. And what you repeatedly forgive becomes the dynamic. This is where many women lose respect without realizing it. They believe they are being understanding, patient, loving, but patience without standards does not read as love. It reads as availability. And availability without discernment drains value. A man does not respect a woman because she explains her needs well. He respects her because her presence has conditions, not spoken conditions, lived once. This is why boundaries feel uncomfortable at first. They interrupt patterns that benefited someone else. A woman with boundaries does not threaten men. She exposes them. She exposes who can meet her and who cannot. This is why some men rise and others resist. Resistance is information, not something to fix. Most women think boundaries push men away. They don't. They filter. They remove men who were only comfortable when there was no structure, when everything was flexible for their convenience. A man who respects boundaries does not feel controlled by them. He feels oriented because clarity creates safety, and safety is what allows attraction to deepen. Another truth that's rarely said: men test boundaries instinctively, not maliciously, but developmentally. Testing answers one question: how much does this woman respect herself? And the answer is never in what she says. It's in what happens after the test. Does she explain or adjust? Does she give another chance? Without change, does she stay warm while being diminished? Every response teaches him something, and men adapt quickly to what works. This is why boundaries that are announced but not enforced lose power. A boundary only becomes real when it costs access, not dramatically, quietly. This is where grounded women differ. They don't argue for respect. They stop offering closeness where it isn't reciprocated. They don't punish. They realign. And realignment is deeply uncomfortable for someone who relied on your flexibility. Many women fear boundaries because they fear loss. They believe, if I pull back, he'll leave. But here's the truth: if a man only stays when you overextend, there was nothing stable to protect. Boundaries do not destroy connection, they reveal whether it was real. Respect does not come from being chosen, it comes from being selective. A woman who chooses herself does not need to announce it. Her behavior does the work. She does not respond instantly out of anxiety. She does not chase clarity from inconsistency. She does not reward effort. That disappears. She remains warm, but not available without intention. This combination is powerful. Warmth without access creates contrast. Contrast creates awareness. Awareness creates respect. Men feel this before they name it. They sense when a woman is no longer emotionally negotiable, not cold, not distant, but contained. Containment is attractive because it signals that her energy is not chaotic. It has direction. Direction commands respect. This is why boundaries are not aggressive. They are calm. A woman who enforces boundaries does not raise her voice. She lowers her availability. She does not argue about standards. She lives them. And when standards are lived, they don't require justification. The biggest mistake women make is setting boundaries after resentment has already built. At that point, the boundary feels like punishment. But boundaries are meant to be preventative, not corrective. They exist before disrespect becomes a pattern. This requires self-awareness. You notice the moment something feels off, not when it becomes unbearable, and you respond, not emotionally, but structurally. You change how much you give, how fast you respond, how accessible you are. You don't threaten to leave. You simply stop overinvesting. This is what resets respect, because men associate respect with consequence, not consequence as in punishment, but consequence as in reality. Actions produce outcomes. A man who feels consequences without drama learns quickly. A man who is argued with does not. This is why boundaries spoken in calm silence are more powerful than emotional speeches. Another overlooked truth: men respect boundaries. They don't fully understand. More than boundaries, they intellectually agree with. Why? Because felt boundaries create uncertainty, and uncertainty forces reflection. He begins to wonder why access changed, why energy shifted, why you are no longer as available. That reflection is where respect grows, not in explanations. This is also why boundaries are not meant to be flexible. Flexibility is a trait, not a standard. Your standards should be stable. Your warmth can vary. When standards fluctuate, men test more. When standards are consistent, men stabilize or leave. Both outcomes are clean. A woman with boundaries does not chase men away. She removes confusion. And confusion is where disrespect hides. When everything is clear, a man either steps up or steps out, and neither outcome requires force. This is what most women ignore. They try to be respected by being agreeable, but respect is not earned through accommodation. It is earned through self-containment. The woman men respect is not the one who gives the most. It's the one who knows when to stop. And stopping without bitterness is power, not because it manipulates, but because it communicates. I will not abandon myself to be chosen. That message lands deeply, even when nothing is said. When a woman begins to hold boundaries consistently, something subtle shifts inside her. She stops scanning for approval. She stops monitoring reactions. She no longer waits to see how much she can give without losing someone. Her nervous system reorganizes around self-trust, and that internal shift changes how she is experienced. Men respond differently to women who are self-led, not because those women are demanding, but because they are predictable in the right way. Their standards do not fluctuate with attention. This creates safety, not emotional softness, but structural safety. A man knows where he stands, and men relax when expectations are clear. This is why boundaries do not create tension unless someone benefits from their absence. Tension is feedback. It shows you who was relying on your overgiving. Another thing most women overlook: boundaries are not reactive. They are rhythmic. They shape the pace of connection, how fast intimacy grows, how quickly access is granted. When intimacy moves too fast, respect often lags behind. Boundaries slow the pace, not to withhold, but to allow assessment. A woman who moves slowly is not uninterested. She is attentive. She is watching behavior. Over time, men feel this attention. It makes them more deliberate. They become more aware of what they offer because they sense they are being evaluated, not judged, observed. This changes effort. Effort becomes intentional instead of impulsive. Another quiet truth: boundaries protect attraction from collapsing under familiarity. When everything is available, nothing is valued. When access has rhythm, presence becomes meaningful. This is why men often respect women more after those women pull back, not because they withdrew affection, but because they restored proportion. Proportion is essential. Too much closeness, too early, creates imbalance. Boundaries rebalance. A woman who maintains boundaries does not become rigid. She becomes selective. Selectivity feels powerful because it signals choice, and choice is attractive. Men want to feel chosen, but only after earning it. When choice is immediate, it feels accidental. When choice is selective, it feels intentional. This is where respect deepens, not in drama, but in discernment. Another misconception: boundaries are not ultimatums. They are not threats. They are quiet standards that guide your behavior. You do not say, "If you do this, I'll leave." You simply leave, or reduce access, or change your investment without announcement. This is what most women fear. They believe they must explain to be fair, but fairness is not self-erasure. You are allowed to respond to behavior without justification. Men learn faster from experience than explanation. When a woman stays kind but unavailable, the message lands. Kindness without access is not confusing, it is clarifying. Another shift occurs when boundaries are consistent. Men stop testing. Testing only continues when results are inconsistent. When every test meets the same response, testing loses purpose. And with testing gone, a different energy appears: respect. Because respect comes from reliability, not accommodation. A woman who enforces boundaries without anger, without punishment, without explanation, becomes emotionally legible. Men trust what they can predict, and predictability in standards creates attraction. This is why men often say they don't like drama, but what they really mean is they don't like emotional volatility. Boundaries reduce volatility. They create calm, and calm is magnetic. Another truth women rarely hear: boundaries make men self-reflect, not immediately, but eventually, because when access is limited, without hostility, he cannot blame you. There is no fight, no accusation, no emotional explosion, only absence of availability. This absence forces internal questions. Not, "Why is she mad?" but, "Why did this change?" Those questions create awareness, and awareness creates respect. Some men rise into that awareness, others retreat. Neither is your responsibility. Boundaries do not exist to manage men, they exist to manage your energy. When your energy is protected, your presence becomes potent. Men feel potency, even if they don't name it. Another subtle shift: you begin to trust your timing. You no longer rush to secure interest. You allow attraction to unfold. This patience is not passive, it is confident. It says, "I don't need to be chosen immediately. to feel secure. That energy is rare, and rarity creates value. Men do not respect women who chase outcomes. They respect women who trust themselves. This trust is communicated through boundaries, not declarations. A woman with boundaries does not announce her worth. She demonstrates it through what she allows, through what she walks away from, through what she does not chase. And over time, this consistency builds a reputation, not socially, energetically. Men feel when a woman cannot be rushed, cannot be pressured, cannot be emotionally negotiated. That feeling creates respect, and respect is the foundation of lasting attraction. When boundaries are held over time, something irreversible happens. The dynamic restructures, not emotionally, structurally. Structure determines behavior, not intention, not promises, not words. This is why men who initially resist boundaries often return changed, not because they were persuaded, but because the old pattern no longer functions. The absence of emotional overgiving forces a recalibration. He begins to feel effort, not pressure. Effort. Effort reminds a man that connection is not automatic. That presence is earned. This does not feel like punishment. It feels like consequence. And consequence creates respect. Another truth most women overlook: men do not respect women who tolerate disappointment. They respect women who respond to it, not with anger, with adjustment. Adjustment communicates self-trust. Self-trust is magnetic because it signals you are not dependent on the outcome. This independence changes how men show up. A man who senses that you will continue, with or without him, relaxes into authenticity. He either invests or disengages, but he stops hovering. Hovering only happens when access is ambiguous. Boundaries remove ambiguity. Another shift occurs when you stop explaining. Explanations invite negotiation. Negotiation invites testing. Testing delays respect. When you act without explaining, your behavior becomes the message, and behavior is undeniable. A woman who quietly reduces availability after inconsistency does not look confused. She looks clear. Clarity commands respect, even if it disappoints someone. Disappointment is not harm. It is information. Another overlooked point: boundaries expose emotional maturity. Men who can self-regulate respond positively. They feel relief. Men who cannot feel destabilized. They may accuse you of changing, of being distant, of being different. They are not wrong. You did change. You stopped overfunctioning. And overfunctioning was cushioning their inconsistency. This is why accusations often appear. When boundaries are enforced, they are not attacks. They are reactions. Reactions to the removal of emotional labor. A grounded woman does not defend herself against these reactions. She remains steady. Steadiness is the boundary. Over time, this steadiness trains respect, not obedience. Respect, because respect is not about control. It is about recognition. Recognition of your limits. Recognition of your value. Recognition that access to you is not guaranteed. This recognition changes how men approach you. They become more intentional, more careful, more present, or they leave. Either outcome protects your future. Another subtle shift: you stop rewarding potential. Potential keeps women stuck. Behavior sets women free. When your boundaries respond only to behavior, not words, not apologies, not intentions, men quickly learn what matters. And men respect clarity because clarity removes confusion. Confusion is where games thrive. Boundaries in games. Without confrontation, they make games boring. When nothing dramatic happens, after inconsistency, no chasing, no anger, no emotional speeches, just reduced access. Games lose their payoff. And when games end, respect replaces them. This is why the calm woman is so powerful. She doesn't react. She redirects. She doesn't threaten. She adjusts. Adjustment is leadership, and leadership is attractive. Another important realization: boundaries protect you from resentment. Resentment poisons attraction. When you stay too long without boundaries, resentment builds, and resentment leaks through tone, through energy, through microreactions. Men feel it, but they don't always know what it is. Boundaries prevent this. They keep your energy clean. Clean energy is attractive because it is honest. Another truth: boundaries create emotional safety for you, and emotional safety for you becomes emotional safety for the relationship. A woman who feels safe does not become reactive. She does not chase reassurance. She does not test. This absence of testing changes the entire dynamic. Men often say they want peace. Boundaries create peace, not by suppressing emotion, but by regulating it. A regulated dynamic feels stable. Stability builds trust. Trust builds attachment. Attachment built on respect lasts. This is why boundaries are not a phase. They are an identity. You don't turn them on to get a reaction. You live them. And when boundaries become identity, men respond differently, not because you demand more, but because you are more contained. Containment is rare, and rarity creates value. As boundaries become embodied, something else changes. Your attention returns to you. You stop measuring your worth through someone else's interest. And this is where attraction becomes sustainable, because attraction that depends on external validation is unstable. Men feel this shift immediately. A woman who is no longer waiting to be chosen becomes difficult to ignore, not because she is distant, but because she is grounded. Grounded energy does not chase, it invites. This is why men often become more consistent after a woman has stopped overgiving, not because she asked, but because her behavior reframed the relationship. The dynamic now has weight. Weight creates gravity. Gravity holds attention. Another overlooked truth: boundaries protect mystery, not artificial mystery, but organic mystery. When everything about you is immediately accessible, there is nothing left to discover. Boundaries create pacing. Pacing allows curiosity. Curiosity sustains desire. This is why men often lose interest in dynamics that move too fast. It is not fear, it is saturation. Boundaries prevent saturation. They allow interest to mature. Another important shift: you stop interpreting inconsistency as confusion. You see it as information. Information does not require fixing. It requires response. And your response is no longer emotional. It is structural. You give less. You wait longer. You invest where effort appears. This recalibration is felt. Men recognize when they are no longer being emotionally carried. They either step into effort or step away. Both outcomes are clean. Clean endings preserve self-respect. Self-respect amplifies attraction, even after separation. This is why men often return with more respect, not because time passed, but because the dynamic changed. You did not collapse without them. You did not chase closure. You remained intact. Integrity is unforgettable. Another thing boundaries do, they make your yes meaningful. A yes from a woman who rarely says no has little weight. A yes from a woman who is selective feels earned. Men feel the difference. Earned attention is respected attention. This is why boundaries are not cold. They are clarifying. They allow genuine connection to emerge instead of obligation, instead of emotional labor, instead of performance. Connection built on boundaries feels calm, and calm is what allows men to stay present. Another shift, you stop fearing loss because you trust your ability to respond, not control. This trust makes you relaxed. Relaxation changes your voice, your timing, your reactions. Men feel relaxed women as emotionally safe. Safety encourages commitment, not pressure, not ultimatums. Safety, and safety begins with self-boundaries. This is the core truth. Boundaries are not about men. They are about how you inhabit yourself. When you respect yourself consistently, men adjust accordingly, not because they are trained, but because dynamics follow energy, and energy follows self-trust. This is why boundaries that last are quiet. They do not need to be announced. They do not need to be defended. They are simply lived. And lived boundaries reshape everything. How you are treated, how long men stay, how deeply they invest, and how peacefully you move on. When they don't, that is real power, not control, not persuasion, self-containment. If this resonated, drop one word in the comments that reflects what you're choosing more of now: standards, self-trust, or peace. The right word often reveals the right next shift.